Hi everyone and welcome back to the channel. So I had this big plant, a Phormium Tenax. It's also known as a New Zealand flax, and I've been growing it. I grew it from a seed about 7 years ago, and recently it's just been growing in an old bin because I didn't know what to do with it because it was getting big. So I thought it was time to give it a treat and give it a nice new pot. So luckily the roots are nice and square, quite a small root ball, easy to deal with. So it would be quite easy for me to just measure up some wood to make a planter. So I had these triangular sort of pieces of wood which I thought would be ideal to make legs with, because 4 of them would sort of make a square. So I just placed them roughly how I wanted them to get an idea of the measurements that I'd need. And in the end I think I settled on 17 inches wide by 14 inches deep, and that would bring it to be roughly square, considering that some sides are going to overlap other sides. So in the end it would bring it to a rough square. So the first thing to do was to mark up all the pieces I needed and get them cut out, and I think there were 16 pieces in total, 4 for each side. So I've got all the pieces now, I've got the 4 legs, and I've got the 4 shorter sides and then the 4 longer sides. So the next thing to do was to get this all screwed together. So for that I had quite a few of these, some drywall screws, and they work perfectly because they get a nice grip on the wood and they go in really easily. So now I'm just going to use plenty of glue just to make sure it's all nice and solid. And I took my time here a little bit just to get everything lined up and square. So piloting in the holes and then driving in those drywall screws with an impact driver. So that was the first 2 shorter sides built. So now it's to get the time to get the long sides on. So again, plenty of glue, and same procedure, just making sure everything's nice and square. And as I go, I just check everything with the speed square. Ideally for this part you might want to use decking screws, but really any screw will do, as long as you get a nice tight fit and you use a lot of glue. It should be quite solid. So that was the main structure done, and now it was trying to put a base on. So for the base, I just cut some wood down, had an offcut. And I then attached these to all four sides. And that would allow me to put my planks on top and form the base. So now I just cut down a few slats of pallet wood for the base. And if you're new to the channel, welcome. Thank you for clicking on this video, and I hope you enjoy. So now I just again used some drywall screws just to secure those slats, and I've made sure that there's gaps in between them, and that will be good for drainage when I put a liner in, and then I'm going to put some holes in the liner as well. You'll see that in a moment. So there was the base done. Now it was just time to give everything a quick sanding over, just to make sure there's no sharp edges. And for that I used a really high grit. So for the paint I used a colour called Sage Green, which was a one coat stain, so it saves quite a bit of time. It does go on in one coat. I find it to be good. And for the legs I decided to change the colour to give it some contrast, so I'm using grey for the legs, and that will just give it a little bit more impact. So I had an old piece of plastic, it's quite thick. I thought this would be ideal to put a liner into this pot. So I just started off by pushing it in, just feeling around and roughly working out how big the piece needed to be. And I'll just cut the piece out with a knife. Once it was all neat inside, I folded over any rough edges and then I stapled it in place with an electric staple gun. And it was time to put some holes in there for the drainage. So I just felt around where the gaps were between those slats and poked a few holes in. So before I put the plant in, it was time to just give it a trim up. It hadn't been trimmed in a while, so I just took all the dead leaves off and just cut any sort of broken leaves. And then it was time to get it into the pot. I just jiggled it around a little bit and it fitted really easy because it had that square root ball from the bin, so it wasn't rolling around or anything. It was great. So then I just added some heavy soil just to keep it all in place. And then I just used some multi-purpose compost for the top. So I had this old piece of slate, like a slate tile, and I decided to break it up with a hammer and chisel to form some slate chippings, and I thought this would just finish it off nicely. I started off by just putting down some pea shingle just to give the slate a little base to sit on. And then I just added the slate. So the cost of this project was pretty much nothing. All recycled materials, apart from the paint. Really cheap and easy. And I was really happy with the way it turned out. So if you found this video useful, please like and also comment. If you've got any questions, please let me know, and also consider subscribing for more videos. So thank you for watching, as always, and I'll see you next time.